Okay, we could pull out. Well, this is an assortment of works. Some are computer generated, and some of them are actually commissions that we're working on or preparing to present to juries. This is one I'm going to be proposing to Toronto for a commission in the distillery district. I'm not doing any land art now. I mean, that was a long time ago, and that's really how I began right out of grad school, right at the early entry of so-called conceptual art, land art, body art work, areas which joined other methods like language-based art and other kinds of art that all had some sort of relationship with non-objectness or the dematerialization of objects. So either writing or land art was somewhat dematerialized because it dealt with the horizontal, and it dealt with materials like dirt and so on. Obviously, these things are not stable. Early conceptual art was really anti-object. I remember that very clearly. That one would argue that the objectness was being attacked. It was like as if music was attacking sound. We were attacking the actual substance that made something visible. That's pretty radical. Well, after you do that 2 or 3 times, maybe that's enough reason to think that you might be able to finally move on to something else, which might put you closer to the object once again. You can be radical for only so long. I remember when I entered with land art and body art, and some of those images are retained historically, but a lot of territory in the 80s is less clear, and 90s, and there was a lot of maneuvering in and out of installations and film and video and objects. So I come from quite a different beginning than I am presently, because now I'm involved with rather stable and in many ways more conventional work.
Was there a particular commission, an ice-breaking commission that set you off in the path?
Yes, there were some in the 70s which I lost, and I found myself disliking everything about public art. Public art is often more aligned to applied art, and it's often heavily manipulated by juries. Many of them are conservative and don't have any art element at all, but yet these things materialize. This is a project for Pasadena, which is a commission I won for the Civic Center. It's called Thinking Caps, and these are some of the rudimentary explorations that I did. These will have projected images, video projected images inside these very large hat forms. This is extremely conventional. The only thing that makes it a little bit out there is the fact that these are projection screens, and the idea of the thinking cap, a sort of giant cylindrical or hemispherical thing that comes in contact with your head, interested me.
You also have these sort of cerebral or ideational, if you will, the idea that you're thinking about thinking.
Yeah, that goes way back, and I think that probably goes back to conceptual art. you know, because one wanted to put the mind in the work a lot more than the retina. This is in Freiburg, Germany, at the University of Freiburg. And I consider this a successful work because this building is microtechnology, which is an extremely theoretical study of many things, but these very almost invisible little motors that go in your bloodstream. So this is called Jump and Twist, and it exists in three parts. It exists right out here in a very stable, heavy, but certainly a structure that looks like you can inhabit it, but it looks like it wants to move. It's got wings. So the next stage, it enters the building, enters through the membrane into the interior of the building, and it twists. And when it twists, it morphs into the third stage. So it's like a butterfly coming from a moth. And when it occupies this stage, it's more reflective, it's lighter, it's more cerebral, which is more like the building activity. So in this case, public art wants to have some dialogue with the building it's in.
Is that unusual?
No, well, that's the way I think. I mean, I think often that, and maybe that's conventional. I don't know. Maybe a better way would be to resist what the building is about. This is another work that I think is successful. Device to root out evil. It was shown in Venice. It's glass and aluminum. It's architecturally interesting because it cantilevers a giant mass out into space, so a sculptor could find themselves enraptured by this sort of simple device of turning something up and upside down. This work I also feel is successful in Valladolid, Spain, which has a yearly film festival, just like Cannes. This is called Stage Set for a Film. It's a facade of a building, very much a stage set. Ladders, pulleys, dollies for cameras. And it has a house up here, perched as if it's going to fall. So in a way, it's a sculpture that is yet to reveal itself. It looks like something else will happen. So I've always said that this is the way sculpture should be. It shouldn't have revealed itself. It should have something hidden, something about to happen, something that could unfold.
You were doing a lot of architectural structures within the sculptural concept at the time. A lot of pieces that look like buildings.
Yeah, it seems that way. They want to kind of enforce a decision on my part, whether it's vastly conscious, that I'm aligning myself with the architectural world, overt associations with architecture.
Is that still the case, do you think?
Well, it's not the case in this piece, which is done about the same time. It's like my position has always been inundated with several, sometimes opposing things occurring at the same time. And here's a work called, I think it's called Performance Structure. It's sort of a little bit like if you walk down a corridor and you have sort of hard-soled shoes and you're making sounds, you could say you're playing it. You're putting sound into the architectural cavity. And this is sort of plays on that idea of performing architecture by instigating some theatrical play against it. Here's a bus stop. This is maybe one of the few real functional things, if you want to call it that. These are all meant to be bus stations that you could sit in. but it's at a shopping center where I observe most people that work here and take the bus, they don't have cars, so they're already indicating a certain socioeconomic strata, and they're usually going home. So it's a bus morphing slowly into a house. So right now I'm operating within urban sites. 40 years ago I would have considered them too conventional, but now I consider them appropriate because one can affect people within these regions. Land art, you could affect ideas, you could affect art history in terms of the concepts, but this work has an experiential, physical relationship with people, and it affects them and their behavior. So that's a component that in some ways is richer than what I was doing before.
Is there an element of aesthetic self-censorship? I mean, do you have to refrain from taking too many chances so as to get the commission?
Yeah, it's really something that you have to understand. I mean, you can't understand that enough.
How does that sit with you?
Well, being an artist is already uncomfortable. So you're used to discomfort, and you're used to being involved in things that you don't fully grasp. At least I am, and I have been all my life. I mean, how much can you know about what you're doing? It's never enough. So I'm already so used to operating with discomfort. I wouldn't know what it's like to be otherwise. I really don't know how you make art with a kind of full grasp and comfort level where you know what you're occupying. I just don't know what that would be like. It's quite handsome.
I was gonna get the Orland, but that was like almost $100.
Oh, crazy. Wow.
Well, that would have been okay. Toasters are a 40.